All right. Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 9, titled Vox, aka The Next Generation, Season 8. It's pretty much what this is. So I've been reviewing this show so far. We've come to the ninth episode, the episode before the finale, which this feels like the first part to, a movie. But then again, this whole season felt like one giant motion picture, if you will. So, um, and listen, there has been things in this show that have been little nitpicks, but nothing crazy to where it takes me out of the show. Um, and it's just been kicking ass lately, man. Just this series, I'm still kind of in shock when it comes to this franchise because for me personally, I'm not speaking for everyone, just speaking for myself on my behalf, that this franchise it's look, it appeals to everyone, obviously. I am not into anything that Alex Kurtzman or JJ Abrams or bad reboot as Gary from Nerdrotic calls it. But I'm not into the trek that these guys are making. If you do your research, you can go on YouTube. And the wonderful thing about the internet, which has always been the thing about the internet, but in this circumstance, for one to go back and do homework, to go back and watch the press stuff from Star Trek '09, director J.J. Abrams. Everyone was excited, including myself. I was a very naive version of myself where this person was presenting things that we were just kind of like, okay, this kind of brings us back to, the days of Spielberg, the days of Robert Zemeckis and all of these things, movie magic. Then later come to find out how much of a huge fraud this gentleman is. What? I called the fraud a gentleman. I'm being nice. Um, J.J. Abrams has good ideas, but terrible executions, and he doesn't know how to finish or wrap up those ideas. He knows how to begin a story, but given his track record and his reputation, I'm not lying. It's there. It's fucking there on film. Lost started great, ended horribly. Alias started great, ended terribly. Star Wars, we all know what happened with that one. He made a movie, giving us hopes of what could be a at least a good trilogy. I didn't like that they killed Han Solo, but I was looking forward to seeing Luke Skywalker taking over the trilogy again. But I can get into that whole rabbit hole situation. It just wasn't good. The Rise of Skywalker is one of the worst science fiction movies in history. it literally in his it's up there with Battlefield Earth. Okay. And so for me, I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm just speaking on my behalf. The Rise of Skywalker is the worst science fiction movie ever since Battlefield Earth. You can quote me on that, and you could put that on the back of the 4K release of The Rise of Skywalker if they ever feel so bold to be honest. Um, J.J. Abrams just sucks. Okay. He's proven himself for many, many years that perhaps he can write dramas. Regarding Henry is a fantastic script, and it was a good movie. Um, does that mean that that person knows how to write Star Wars? No. Doesn't mean that they know how to tackle on Star Trek. Absolutely not. And on more than one occasion on YouTube, I know, facts are gross. On YouTube, okay, J.J. Abrams has gone on record on talk shows and has said that he was never a Star Trek fan. He was never a Star Trek fan. And I had to go back and watch Star Trek '09 at some point. I remember it was years, a couple years ago. And I thought to myself, all right, I remember liking this movie because it brought an idea to Star Trek that perhaps can unfold into something better, into something that we all are familiar with. And it just wasn't. It just wasn't. They were trying to rework the wheel, and that is the biggest mistake that current Star Trek is doing today. Is that yes, they have the spirit of Star Trek is there. I could see it. It's there. The spirit, meaning that to boldly go where no one has gone before. That is there. That is an idea. That's just not a great speech from the great Captain Kirk. That is the idea of Star Trek. So it's there, but it's missing that inspiration to go out and be the best you can be. And we live in a time right now where there's a lot of media, television, movies, all of that stuff where they are trying to speak to an audience. I'm not sure how much the percentage is because I'm not going to make up a number, but it's a lot of people, or at least they're trying to appeal to a lot of people that, hey, you know what? Being mediocre, it ain't so bad. It's weird, like, oh, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to get up and work. I'm sorry. It's such a struggle to just make life better for yourself. And even if you keep failing, you just try and try again, no matter how many times people try to, or at least tell you that you're no good, or you're a disappointment, or this is going to be you forever type talk, you know but you never settle for less, and you just don't settle. You go out and you get what you want because you know what you're worth, and you strive for the best. And that's what Star Trek inspired myself as a kid, despite that I'm not a millionaire. I don't have financial success like many people do. I don't, but I don't give up. And what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that a lot of you and people out there who programs like these try to attract you to tell you that, hey, listen, you know what? You could just settle for less. Don't settle for less. And if you just keep getting crapped on, just do it again. Just keep doing it again. I know it sounds cliche as hell, but I'm 37. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not even a thousandaire in the deep thousands. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, I'm just a person who lives in this planet and is trying to be happy, make my dogs happy. That's what it's all about. Never say I can't do it, even if you don't know anything about the subject matter. People learn. People learn. So, what I'm trying to say here is that Star Trek today is not the Star Trek I grew up with. However, this show, this season of Star Trek Picard, doesn't have a lot of those things that I have mentioned because it is one season. They are trying to tell a story. It is a 10-hour movie. But within those episodes, there's little, I want to call squeezettes. They squeeze something in between things that are very important. But if you just squeeze in something there to make you think, to make you wonder, um, then the show is doing its job. Which, as great as I'd love to think that this show is going to end like with a banger, okay? When you have something so good going for this long, okay? Not everything's perfect. Not everything is perfect. And what I'm talking about, folks, because this is a spoiler review. I'm talking about the Borg for this episode of Star Trek Picard. Now, I I used to love the Borg because they were threat level 11 for me, you know. Best of both worlds. There is a creepy atmosphere about that two-parter. Something changed in Jean-Luc Picard. Just like how Vatic says it. Jean-Luc Picard. She says it properly too, without the D is silent. Anyway, Jean-Luc Picard, when he was assimilated by the Borg, that was a game changer for the character, for the crew of the Enterprise, for the show itself, for the franchise, introducing the Borg as this major level threat um, for our heroes. And then seasons, and not so much season one, but them talking about it and bringing it up and working with Borg technology, all this stuff. Um, and then season two was just heavy on the Borg, to the point of ridiculousness, where they made the Borgs, like this hippie thing, and it was just weird and strange, and it was stupid. It was just plain fucking stupid. Season two was worse than season one, in my opinion, but season one it's just terrible. Season one had a terrible ideas. Picard dying at the end, and then being resurrected as a positronic droid that looks human. I mean, all they took was the brain and they put it in this golem. So you're saying that instead of just making him young again, you're gonna make his body into a 90-year-old again? It's stupid. It's dumb. Um, Bringing back Brent Spiner and exploiting the Soong character and Data and all this stuff, like, just it was dumb. Season 2 was dumb. The time travel aspect of things didn't work, didn't make any sense. Um, and listen, I get look, if you like it, great, cool. It's got the name Star Trek slapped onto it. It must be perfect, right? So here we are with the Borg again. And listen, it would have meant more if they didn't fuck with the Borg so much, because people who don't really watch and invest in Star Trek, you could literally just find the things, like from Wikipedia or from Star Trek memes, and they think, "Oh, this is what's popular, so let's just make a show about this. We don't need to go watch every episode and understand who these characters are. As we kind of know who Jean-Luc Picard is. I know he says make it so and engage a lot and all those things. That's fine. The Borg, they're bad. Q, he's bad. Where's the Cardassians? Where's all the originality that writers can come up when you create villains, when you create story? I mean, Star Trek really doesn't have villains. They're more like, I mean, they're not really just so black and white. There's layers to these characters, and so they're more like antagonists. But you understand where these villains come from, except stupid shit like Nero. Uh, Even the John Harrison turned Khan villain was very two-dimensional. As much as they wanted to make it three-dimensional, it just wasn't. He wasn't a very layered character, which is why it didn't work. Um. So anyway, the Borg, they're here, and that's what Jack's revelation is in the show when Deanna Troy was trying to um go into his thoughts, and he was trying to figure what Jack's issues were. And what is behind that red door? Well, behind that red door is Mick Jagger. No. Behind that red door, yeah, Mick Jagger with a paint bucket. Mm, wants to paint it black. It's a Borg cube. It's a Borg cube. And I kind of knew that perhaps maybe that's where they were going to go because villains. But the difference between this and the rest, okay, is that in this context, for this story, it works. The Borg work. And by bringing back, I want to say Alice Krige, that's her last, that's if I'm pronouncing that right. She's back as the Borg Queen. That was her voice. That come on. You've seen First Contact, you know that voice. The way she speaks and all of it, it's creepy, okay? So it's definitely her. Now, you could flex your brain or pull something out of, from thin air and do some mental gymnastics. If you love season 2 of Picard, you can find in your own way how to, I mean, the Girardi Borg thing, Borg Queen thing, that what I'm trying to say is that this retcons all of that shit from season 2 because nothing happened to the Borg. The Borg Queen is still there. The Borg is still alive. And keep it simple. Keep it simple. Don't try to rework the wheel like Kurtzman and Goldsman did with seasons 1 and 2. Just no. So the Borg so far work in this capacity. However, they did something with the Borg that I thought it could have been terrible, but it worked. And it's all about execution because the idea is ridiculous, but the execution, it worked and it created this tension in towards the end of the episode that this is the biggest thing that Starfleet ever had to deal with. This is a massive threat. How do you get bigger than this? How do you get bigger than the Borg successfully assimilating all of Starfleet to create this armada? And not only that, but assimilating a certain generation of Starfleet officers, assimilating them for those who have been exposed to the transporter, which explains why in that episode with Commander Rowe, I almost said Ensign Rowe, but with Rowe, why they insisted on not taking any transporters. They wanted to use the shuttlecrafts. Explains everything. Explains a lot. So I absolutely I understood what they were trying to do. So I said, okay, this works. As the episode unfolds, you see how Jack, he understands who he is. He understands what, I mean, he doesn't really understand, but he now is getting an answer. He's pissed that Deanna Troy just left in the middle of all of that. And there's a great scene between Patrick Stewart and Ed Speleers in that same. I mean, when he's talking about how he was affected by the Locutus situation, how he, how all of that is now, it's all been inherited by Jack. And not to go in too deep into it, because even though this is a spoiler review, I know that people are watching this and they want to, you know, enjoy the show. Trust me when I say this, okay? If you agree with me so far, the way they handled Jack getting onto that into that Borg ship, going through, or beaming onto the Borg ship, and then having to confront the Queen, I thought it was handled fine. It wasn't the best, but I thought it was handled just fine to the point where we understand. Now we can go to the next step. So it's Frontier Day. Frontier Day is finally happening, and when they get there, chaos just ensues. And I gotta say, one of my favorite um, characters of Star Trek. Now, he's like one of my newest favorite characters in over 20 years because there hasn't been really a character, not even Enterprise had characters that I liked. Captain Liam Shaw. Captain Liam Shaw meets his demise in this episode. He gets shot by a phaser blast to the chest by one of the crew members who was assimilated because the entire Titan was being taken over by the younger portion of the crew, and then they took over the ship, and it was chaos. So what happened after was when Captain Shaw, he was on the ground, he's clearly dying. He tells Seven of Nine that this is her ship. This is her ship now, and he calls her Seven of Nine. And that was the last thing he did. He said, and then he dies. I was a little disappointed because this was a character that was actually wonderful to watch to unfold into this character who we all end up falling in love with, and he becomes a great captain by thinking about his crew first before himself. You understand where Liam Shaw came from because of his experience with Locutus, the Borg, and how he's the captain of the Titan, and how he went from what people are saying, oh, he's this bigot. I don't think he. Yeah, I guess you could say that, but he was narrow minded, and then he finally respected his officers. He respected Picard, Riker. He was on that journey with them. So it was very sad to see him go. Like I said, I enjoyed this character. I was disappointed because I felt like this is a great character to take into their own show. So here's what's going to happen. If Terry Matalas is really serious about the Star Trek Legacy hashtag he did at that, because he said he would call that, that's what he would call his show, then they would continue the journeys of the Titan by using Seven of Nine as a captain, which, cool. But write her well, like this season of Picard. This is the Seven of Nine I knew from Star Trek Voyager. I believe this is the character she would have grown in to be, not this angry ranger who's just mean mugging the camera every time simply because we got to do girl boss. No, she was a character that you are 100% behind, and you can buy into the fact that she is, going through her journey and trying to protect the ship and trying to, you know, um, look after the crew. So anyway, so the Borg is now a threat again, which is fine. Again, in this context, in this particular episode, I like what they did. Wasn't the best. I wouldn't have picked the Borg, but it is what it is. And I would take this over Enterprise, because we've seen a lot of the Borg also in Voyager. And like I say, with everything that like the Joker, um, just keep it simple. The less you know, the scarier it is. The less you know, the more of a threat they are. So Frontier Day gets jacked up. It gets jacked up bad. Here's one cool thing that I thought was pretty interesting. I just watched Best of Both Worlds recently. As you could tell, I am watching Next Generation on Pluto. It's on TV all the time. Uh, it's always been. It's like Doctor Who, Next Generation. I always bounce back channels. But I will say this though. Remember Commander Shelby from the Next Generation? Best of Both Worlds Parts 1 and 2. She was Riker's first officer. She got promoted in that in part two. She is she was in this in the episode. We got to see the Enterprise F. I don't like it. Enterprise F is an ugly starship. It really is. It's fat and wonky looking and just ugh. I'm not a fan of the triangle saucers. I just don't like the pointy looking saucer. It just looks stupid. It looks dumb. It looks like the Luxor hotel just facing forward, and you just put a starship body under it, and just, there you go. It just looks dumb. I'm not even a fan of the Enterprise E. It's an okay looking ship. I asked my brother the other day. I said, "What do you think of the Enterprise E?" It's not a ship I like. I never really did, to be honest with you. I just kind of put up with it because it's what we had at the time. I was like, "Well, that's their Enterprise. That's their Enterprise." So, it's similar to the Enterprise E, but the Enterprise F is just way ugly looking. And to save, the budget for the show, I guess, they had to kind of recycle the same bridge that they used for Discovery and for the Titan in this one for the Enterprise F. Um, but anyway, Commander Shelby, she makes a cameo. She's older here, of course, and she is, doing the whole presentation for Frontier Day, talking about the history of the Enterprise and mentioning Captain Archer, the NX-01, first Enterprise to ever, you know, and that was cool because that was an Enterprise reference, and I watched Enterprise, and I remember as a kid, Enterprise was like, let's just see how this happens, and it was canceled. Um, so it was cool to see that they honor that show at even in the littlest degree. Then what happens? Well, the Borg have assimilated most of Starfleet, and it's usually people under the age of 25. So everyone on that bridge of the Enterprise turns on Admiral Shelby this time, and Admiral Shelby gets shot up, and then the connection gets lost. It's like, holy crap, they brought her, and then she dies. So I thought that was kind of cool. Not that she died, but I thought that was cool that they brought her back. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool that they killed her off too. Her character was kind of annoying in those episodes, but I kind of wish it was the instead of Shelby, I wish it was actually the other lady from season one who kept telling Picard to shut the fuck up. Yeah, Admiral Hubris, I guess you could call her. Um, I wish it was her because then it would have just been a this to season one completely. Like Terry Metalis is just setting the little seeds there, like yeah, But nah, they didn't do that. No, it was fine what they did here. So everyone is screwed now because all of the ships, okay, in Starfleet, they're all connected, which is weird. Like, why would they do that? Even Riker's like, why the hell would they do that? They're all connected. It's just weird. Like something happens to one, the other knows. It's like today. So they had to get off the Titan because shit was hitting the fan, and Shaw dies. And so who stays behind? Raffi, 7 of 9, and so now you're just left with the OG TNG crew who go off this shuttlecraft, and they go towards the space dock. And what is behind? I believe it was Dock 12. So they have to go get a ship that is not only old school, but one that doesn't have any connections to the other crafts because it is like what Geordi says, an analog of sorts. Something that will remain hidden. They need something that's big. They need something that can work without being detected or even being noticed. Because again, the Borg, they took control of Starfleet now. So now everyone is in the know, in a sense. So when they get there, what do we see behind those doors? Well, this baby comes back. Good old Enterprise D. They gave us the D. That's right. And what a big D that is. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Ladies. No, they brought back the Enterprise D, and I've watched this episode already like 6 times to where I'm already. I cheered, I screamed, I was loud. It was exciting. Give me all the fan service, baby. Give me all of the member berries, but give them to me if it makes sense to the story, if it drives the plot forward, or if it's a plot point or something. This show is a should be shown. This particular season should be shown to the people running The Mandalorian. Um, because simply throwing Luke Skywalker in there ain't gonna get the fans excited. Throwing Han Solo in there isn't enough to get the fans excited. It's fine to see. It's cool, I guess. But in the long run, when you say years from now, you look back and what would you think of this? It's a waste of time. The Mandalorian is so busy trying to throw cameos and throw names and do all this stuff for everyone to go, oh, that's from this. I don't care. The stories suck, and they suck bad. And what this show tend to do is it told a story, it gave us a reason why we should care, and the dialogue doesn't seem like it's written by a 13-year-old. Like the Mandalorian dialogue is they are bad, therefore we must go because we will be destroyed. This is the way. The fuck? Star Trek is written, this particular season is written by writers, people who know how to craft a story, people who know how to write dialogue. Now, you've got writers or a writer on this show who is going to work on Starfleet Academy, which is a show that's going to be ran by Kurtzman. Now, when that's your boss, all right, you really are handcuffed to your creativity. So I'm so sorry for those people who had to join into that Starfleet Academy. I'm sure you love it because it's a job and it'll keep a roof over your head and put food on the table. But the majority of the fan base is going to back out again because they're going back to the reworking the wheel aspect of Star Trek when you could just make Star Trek, you know? Robert Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi, they worked on Star Trek 2009 and Into Darkness. Who do you think out of the two was the bigger Trek fan? Now answer this. Why do you think that individual is not working with him or working on this or working with Star Trek altogether? Okay? It speaks volumes that Kurtzman, he's a professional, he's a company man, but he's going to keep making what he thinks is going to change the world instead of just entertaining an audience. With Strange New Worlds, Akiva Goldsmith or Akiva Goldsman, I keep saying Goldsmith. Goldsman is the showrunner of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I don't like Strange New Worlds, but one thing I can respect that show for is that at least it just tries to tell stories. But it does suffer from dialogue that feels like it's written by a 13-year-old. Because I could tell you right now that the writers of Star Trek Strange New Worlds don't know shit about science. They don't. They don't. I was going to say a lick of it, but no, I want to say shit because it's worse. They don't know shit about science. They don't know shit about the human adventure. And the reason I say that is because I've seen every episode of Strange New Worlds. There is a lot of Strange New Worlds episodes that are, I don't want to say, yeah, I'll say this because it's not adaptations. They ripped off the Star Trek novels, thinking that the audience is so stupid that they haven't read those novels. Well, this seventh grader that back in 1999 during silent reading time. Okay, their teacher, Miss West, she had a husband who was a Trekkie who brought all of their Star Trek books to the classroom because he didn't want to read them anymore because he was done. I read those books. I took them home. I became a bigger Trek fan through those books. And I remember as a kid, I didn't want to say that at the time because I thought people were like, "Oh, you just read Star Trek books? Oh, you're not a real Trek fan." Because back then it was the TV shows. I know better now, of course, but it's all the same. It's all the same if it's good stories, good quality content, and all that stuff. But I remember reading those, and there's at least 3 books that they ripped off from, and I wouldn't care if they rip them off, but at least give those writers credit because they didn't. It's Alex Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman thinking the audience is dumb so they can get away with it because it's Star Trek. Nobody really watches Star Trek anymore unless we make it. That's their mindset. So anyway, back to the real Star Trek. Once they got their Enterprise D, this baby right here, of course, you're going to go into the bridge. And I was waiting for this moment. Once I saw that ship there, I said, please go inside of it and please don't let it be different. Don't let it be different. When Geordi says it was recovered from Viridian 3, the planet that the Enterprise saucer crashed into in Star Trek Generations, and due to, the Prime Directive and all of those things, it's only a certain amount of time before people will discover that ship there. So I thought that was clever that they took that saucer and they just fixed it up and then they gave it a body. And then the warp nacelles, I forgot which ship he said it was used from, but it was basically parts from different starships to make up the Enterprise D. And it's the Enterprise D from the next generation. When they go inside the bridge, you see all the lights turn on slowly. You see the camera making love to the bridge. It's great. It's great. And what's even perfect, and I think this just kind of settles the whole score of aesthetic, is when they were on that bridge, I was scared because I thought, oh God, they're going to turn on the lights and it's still going to be this dark, atmospheric, Kurtzman, you know, uh, blue filters and all of that. No, 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 no. They turned on the lights and it was the classic lights. Everything was bright. You got to see the carpet. It was the next generation. It was the next generation. And not only seeing that, but also again, we have to focus on characters. Okay, it's great to look at this, it's great to look at that, but let's stay focused here, okay? Geordi's 2 daughters are now Borg. Jack is pretty much the voice of the Borg. There's they got to go rescue Jack, and they're using the Enterprise D for it. And there's a moment there where Picard looks at his crew, and it's a very Kirk-esque moment from the search for Spock when he looks at his crew before they take off, and he tells them, and he says, "My friends, um, Dr. McCoy and I have to do this. The rest of you do not. You're risking your careers. You're risking your lives." This moment is synonymous to that. Kirk had that moment. Picard has that moment when he looks at his crew and he tells everyone that we're gonna that this is. I'm sorry, I have to bring you guys with me, but to do this. And Riker says, "We are the crew of the USS Enterprise. We all stick together." And I'm already getting choked up. It's so, it's everything that Star Trek is supposed to be, and it was so good. And then Deanna Troy says that, you know, um, Geordie's daughters, they're family. Jack is family too. They all go in their original positions. Um, Data's in his old spot. It was wonderful to look at again, guys. It was so good. It was so good. And I love the little Enterprise E reference. I know I mentioned Enterprise E earlier before, but when they said what happened to the Enterprise E, and something happened because Worf says that was not my fault, and they all look at him like something happened. Are they ever going to explain what happened? I don't know. Should they? Not really. It's just fun to kind of speculate, forever to figure out what happened, to that ship. All you have to know is that Worf was involved in its demise, perhaps. Who knows? I don't know. And then even on the bridge, they're all like, "This is beautiful. This ship is great. It's exactly how she used to be." And then there's Worf saying, "Well, the Enterprise E's weapons were much better." And this, and it's just great because Worf is always going to be Worf. He never changes. So it was beautiful. It was nostalgic as shit, man, and it was brilliant. Because again, they're not just showing the Enterprise D because, oh, remember Star Trek? No, they are showing it because it is used as a plot point to get somewhere. And with the music, Stephen Barton, dude, this guy, I've said it before in my videos, but I'll say it again. This man knows how to channel Jerry Goldsmith, but also put his own originality, his own flavor onto the music. It's brilliant. This guy is good. And the score at the end of this episode, when you see the Enterprise D coming out of the space dock and doing this turn, and then the music swells up. And Patrick Stewart, as old as he sounds, when he says engage at the end, it sounded like classic Picard. And I hope they call him Captain because what was cool about this also, all the many things that was cool, is when the computer on the Enterprise D, it's still her voice. Majel Burnett, I forgot, I don't know her full name. Gene Roddenberry's wife. Um, Majel Barrett Roddenberry, I believe is her name. I have to look that up. I have to look that up. Look at that photo while I look up her name, because it's gonna bug me all day. Ah, yeah, I was right. I said it right. Majel Barrett Roddenberry. The computer that was on the Enterprise, that's still her voice. It's still her voice. And so it still acknowledges Picard as the captain of the ship. So he's like, well, I'll just take the demotion. And you see Picard call Riker number one again. It's just all of those things, man. All of them in their positions, the way the camera was presented into the bridge, and all of those things. I've watched that bridge growing up, so to see it again exactly the way it was, congratulations, Star Trek, you did it. You did it just when I thought there, right when I thought there wasn't any hope, they did it. They did it. They did it and a half, man. And it was beautiful. And the last shot of the Enterprise going into warp drive, you hear the Enterprise D nacelle sounds, that whoop. I loved it, and it was great. It was great. It was beautiful. It was. I'm still trying to like soak it all in. You know what I'm saying? But man, that moment right before the credits hit in that episode when the Enterprise goes out with the music, man, I'm still excited because I'm gonna watch the episode again. It was that good. It was that good. It wasn't like the best thing ever. I get it. Look, I know that there's people that weren't fans of the thing that happened. And it wasn't so much because of what happened at the end, it was the Borg. The Borg is what is going to be a lot of it's going to be the divisiveness, I guess, of fans who they may like this season, but they probably just didn't like the fact that they built up this whole entire story with Jack and only to be revealed that, oh, it's another Borg story. Okay. But to be fair, this is a much better idea with the Borg, actually ever since First Contact. Not probably, just ever since First Contact. So I don't know. It's gonna be it's I'm curious to see um how this is gonna be handled. You know, the uh how the entire the repercussions of it all. Like is Jack's gonna survive this thing, or who's gonna stay, who's gonna go? We just lost Captain Shaw. Captain Liam Shaw. Let's all take a moment of silence for him. Okay. Anyway, it's just it's I'm still like I can't believe they did this. I can't believe listen, the little nitpicks that I have about this episode, they're nothing anything that I would say that's that's an issue. No. It's just little things, you know. But look at this image that's presented here. Okay. Right here. This whole picture right here. All right. This was a great data moment. Um because Data is still trying to figure out things, I mean, he looks human, he kind of acts human, but he isn't fully, you know, in grasping everything, 100%. But I thought it was funny when in this moment he's like, he says something like Jordy's like, it's like, damn, Data, like, could you be a little bit more positive? And then he says, I hope we die quicker. And then he just looks back, and that's the face that he has. I thought that was great. It's great to have Brent Spiner play Data. I mean, this is Data. It feels like Data. It's not, oh, Brent Spiner trying to be Data, painting a picture in season one Picard with all of the prosthetics trying to erase wrinkles. Um, no, this is Data. So, and again, it's not perfect, but it put a smile on my face, and I it's hard to wipe the grin off your face while those moments happen. It wasn't a cheap, oh, let's throw in this, let's throw in that, and then we can make you excited for stuff, but really our show sucks. No, it was everything was legitimate, cool, and I dug it. I dug it. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to think about what the next episode can lead into. But like I said, every prediction I could think of will probably pale in comparison to what these guys have written already. I never thought that they would bring back an old Enterprise, but they did. And it was the right one. And if you really watch this season closely, because I am going back watching episodes 1, 2, up until episode 9, that they did set up the Enterprise D. There is a setup for this ship to appear because it's the first shot after the Picard logo, after it says Next Generation, when it fades to black. It opens up to the picture of the Enterprise painting that Picard had in his quarters. So talking about giving it to Geordi because Geordi would love this. And then at the bar, we see that Guinan was selling the Enterprise D's. They called it the fat one, the fat D's. Ah, ladies. Anyway, but they set up the Enterprise D. They weren't just talking about it to just throw it in there. They set it up. And yeah, it was good. It was good. It was good. It was good. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good shit, man. It's good. Good shit. You know, not that this needed it, but what would have been a nice added touch to it, is if this episode would have ended with the Enterprise going into warp drive, and then it says to be continued in the next generation fonts like we saw before. And then the next episode, you hear Majel Barrett Roddenberry last time on Star Trek Picard season 3, even though she wasn't alive to say those words, but it would still be cool. Hell, you could just throw in last time on Star Trek The Next Generation. But ultimately, what we want to hear is, and now the conclusion. Come on. Nobody would complain about it. Nobody. 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 I'm telling you that right now. If I was a betting man in Vegas, I'd bet a million on that. But it's going to be sad because we've only got one episode left. We're at the end. This is the end. So yeah, I'm sorry to those who are not fully enjoying this show. I'm sorry that the captain isn't a crybaby who worked her way up to the captain's chair because showrunners want to virtue signal. This was a season that had a showrunner and his team of writers display how creative and how it's precious to set up things no matter how long it takes to get there. But the journey there is respected, and then the end game, the payoff, is well worth it. This isn't this isn't going to happen again. What we're getting is a one-time thing only. And it kind of sucks, but that's just the reality of it because of who's in charge. And the people in charge are hiring terrible people to lead franchises. Star Wars is kind of a lost cause right now, whether you want to admit it or not. It is. Doctor Who lost its way. With Russell T Davies coming back, who knows if the show's going to be good? It's a different Russell T Davies now than the one we got in 2005. I'll tell you that much. So who knows? But if there's anything to be learned from this, it's, and I've said this many times, but do not try to rework the wheel. Don't do it. Don't do it because you're going to get another Ray Skywalker. You're going to get another uh, Doctor Who, the Timeless Child, or fucking whatever. That's just all these franchises that are tarnished. And what's weird is that you have Star Trek Discovery fans who really hate this season of Picard because people are actually enjoying this show. And those are not real Star Trek fans. Those are idiots online who collect Funko Pops. And half of the Funko Pops, they have no idea where it's from. So, but anyway, folks, I am out of here. I am going to say my goodbyes for now. I will be back with, of course, the final episode of Star Trek Picard Season 3, aka The Next Generation Season 8. We are at the end, folks. It's been fun, but we've got one more to do. And with that review, I'm going to give you my overall review of the show and all of those things. So stay tuned for that. But it's been fun, and I would man, this has been a really good season. It's been fun hyping Star Trek and being part of the Star Trek fan circle where we're actually liking this stuff. And it's fun and refreshing to talk about the things that you do like. It's great. It's great. So, anyway, folks, thank you so much for watching. I will be back, but until then, I'm out. Peace.